So one of the first things that came to my mind was you need to decide, can you do this yourself or not? And if you got the right tools, which are, you're going to need a 10 millimeter socket wrench, 12 millimeter, 14 millimeter, and 17 millimeter socket wrench. You're also going to need a bigger wrench than I had. I tried to use that one, and it worked when I put this cheater bar on it. But I would suggest a bigger wrench because you can hurt yourself pretty easily. Some of these bolts, especially on the exhaust manifold, are in there very tight, and you need a lot of force to get them off. So let me get into the actual work itself. So if you're going to try and do this yourself, one of the first things you need to do, and the order is important, you need to see if you can get this bolt out from the engine block. This is the bracket that's holding up this wiring harness, and that's going to take a 12 millimeter socket, but that took me 45 minutes to get out, and I had to spray WD-30 on it, and I really hurt myself trying to get that thing out because the wrench slipped. If you can't get that one out, then I wouldn't try to do the job myself. That would be my indicator for, can you do this yourself, or do you have to give it to somebody else? And I didn't really have a choice but to get that out because I started it based upon what the other videos showed. I took these hoses off first, and I took out the screws from the exhaust manifold, but it should actually be done with this bracket. Should be the first thing that you try to get off, because that is difficult to get out. The other thing that's not mentioned in some of these other videos is you have to take the radiator hose off. The exhaust manifold is going to have to come out between the radiator and the battery compartment, and the only way to get it out is to take off the radiator hose, and so that means your radiator fluid is going to come out if you haven't drained it. And if you let the radiator fluid come out, it's going to get on your chassis down there, and then when you go under the car to get this 12 millimeter bolt out, it's going to go in your eyes, no matter how well you clean it up, because it's constantly dripping down there. So I suggest that you plan ahead and drain your radiator at least partially, and that will save your radiator fluid. So then if you then follow the steps to get the starter out, then you can do a little better diagnosis, and we'll go inside now and take a look at what we found in the starter itself. So as mentioned earlier, the car has 70,000 miles on it. It's 9 years old, so the starter is going to have some wear on it. But I wasn't sure how much, and you can't diagnose this with the starter on the car because it's so difficult to get to. So I took the starter apart. That's pretty quick and easy, and that is the powdered carbon brushes. That's how much carbon, that's how much is left, that's how much powder is left from the carbon brushes from the motor. And if we look exactly at the brushes, we can see that two of them on this side here, where my fingernail is, right there, and there, they're not sticking out very far. They're kind of pretty well worn down. And the ones that are worn down, it's kind of hard to see, but they're kind of shiny. They're kind of worn down here on this side. And if you look at them, you can see they're kind of pitted, which would indicate to me that they're sparking a little bit when that voltage is going through there. And there's also some chunks of carbon here. It's a little bit hard to see. But the other ones are shiny. I don't know if you can see it in this video or not, but they're kind of shiny, and they're making contact on the armature here. So my guess is that it is the starter. Now, I did a starter test. I took it off with the battery, and it does rotate, but it was rotating very slow. So with that, I have concluded that it is the starter that is the problem here. And I ordered a new starter. There's a couple of options that you can use here. But as this says Mitsuba on it, right there, I looked on the internet. Actually, it says Mitsuba 002. I looked on the internet and I found a Mitsuba 002 on Amazon, and it was a rebuilt one. They talked about how they had rebuilt it, and there was a good review, so I ordered that for just under $200. And I'll show you that starter in just a second. But the thing is, that is one possibility. The other possibility is, if you're really interested in saving money, you can get this brush assembly. I've seen it advertised for $25, and you can just replace the brushes here. This whole unit comes for this whole unit here for $25 is included. This whole brush unit. That's another option. For me, my time is such that if some other part of this starter fails, such as the bearings on the end here or on the other end, or if the armature has some kind of problem with it, I don't want to have to do this again. So for me, it's probably worth it, the $200 to replace the starter, but not the $1,000 to have the dealer to do it. Here is the new starter, which was ordered on the internet. One thing, they said that it was rebuilt in Mexico, and then when I got it, I saw right here it says remanufactured in China. Or remanufactured in Mexico is what they said, not rebuilt. I guess there's a difference. So, but anyway, it looks like it's the same form as the Honda 2007 CR-V, and it looks pretty. So the first one that needs to go on here is this 13mm solenoid connector. The main power connector needs to go onto that bolt. And the reason that's the first one is because otherwise this bar here on top will not let you get the ratchet on top of it. So tighten that one down, and then put in your 17mm down here and your 14mm. It's kind of hard to see that guy. Yeah, but you can see just the end of it right here. That millimeter. Before you put the manifold back on, you've got to get this bracket on the other side of the starting cable and the other side of the battery platform, and then attach that nut there. Otherwise it won't pass the battery starter cable. Video. Okay, so we're torquing now the exhaust manifold. There's one. Yeah. There's this last one. There's 5 of them. Okay, that's good. You can cut it off. Got the battery back in, motor together. We're going to try and start it now. Let's see if it was the starter. And it was the starter.